up on Sportsdesk, Lewis versus Ruddock in a heavyweight showdown. Eric works on his swing as Philly takes to the road. The Breeders' Cup with Canadian horses shooting for the sky. Argos given a rough ride in Ottawa. And things up in the air in Canadian college football.
Hi everyone, welcome to Sports Desk. I'm Gino Reda. Nice to have you with us. We've got some hockey, we've got some baseball, we have got some football for you. But our big story of the day, boxing from London, England. A battle between two transplanted heavyweight Canadians, Razor Ruddock, Lennox Lewis. The winner will get his first shot at the world heavyweight title. We knew Ruddock was a heavy hitter, but I don't think anyone realized how hard Lewis could actually hit. Well, Ruddock found out how hard very early in this match. Ruddock in the lighter pants, big overhand right to the side of the head on Razor Ruddock. Ruddock got caught leaning in with that left jab, got nailed, went down, got back up. Early second round now, Lewis goes back to work. Ruddock drops his guard. Lewis on the attack. Ruddock down on the mat again. Ruddock does get up, gets a standing out, a standing 8 count. But Lewis comes back again and again and again. This time, Razor Ruddock goes down for the final time. What's the story? Let's go to Neil Mallard with more on that in England.
Lennox Lewis is one fight away from the World Heavyweight Championship. Tonight he demolished Razor Ruddock in the second of their 12-rounder at the Earls Court Arena in London.
Before the fight even started, I could see that Razor was a bit agitated. He seemed a bit, nervous. But, I kept my cool. I was very focused in what I had to do. And the main thing for me to do is just to go out there and just be relaxed, and that's what I did. He started off with a body attack, throwing some jabs to the body, but I realized that he kept his hand low, his left hand, over hours of videotape. And I realized that he hasn't been in there with somebody that throws a natural right hand like myself. So it was just a natural reaction just to throw my left right. I mean, we've been working on this for countless weeks. Yeah, when he was getting up, one thing again Pepe always tells me, he's taught me a lot, is to always watch the guy and study the guy. And I'm good at watching people and studying them. I was watching his feet, and I realized that he got up pretty fast, and he was still kind of wobbling. His eyes grew a bit bigger, so I realized that he was still hurt. I like to fight Holyfield because of the fact that he's unbeaten, and I would like to be the first man to beat him. It doesn't matter to me whether it's Holyfield or Bo, because, they're both going to be good fights, and I know Bo wants his chance at me again, and I'll be ever so gracious to give him the chance again.
Holyfield or Bo, the venue will be the United States, and Lewis's management are putting a $25 million tag on it. Now we have to wait and see whether Lewis is going to take over the mantle of Muhammad Ali, the fighter he possibly most closely resembles. For the Sports Network of Canada, this is Neil Mallard at the Earls Court Arena in London.
Thanks, Neil. To hockey now. Dave is the king in Calgary right now. Last season, the Flames missed the playoffs for the first time since moving north. Now, Dave King has led Calgary to top spot in the Smythe division. It's still early, but it's encouraging for Flame fans nonetheless. First period, Sergei Makarov from the slot puts the wrist shot past John Casey. Speaking of encouraging, the Flames have a 1-0 lead. Second period, Kerry Wilson takes the feed from Chris Lindbergh on the 2-on-1. Wilson puts it in the wide open net, shorthanded goal, 2-0 Calgary. 2-1 Flames when Greg Smith lets the shot go from the point, unleashes the blast. Makarov tucks in into the open net, and it's Calgary up 3-1. Richard Matvechuk from the point will let the shot go. Reese gets a piece of it, but it trickles through the 5-hole into the net. Stars trail 3-2. Still in the period, Joey Nieuwendyk lets the shot go. No, he doesn't. He passed to Makarov, who puts it on the 2-on-1. Makarov gets the hat trick on the night. In the end, Calgary over Minnesota by a final score of 5-3. Makarov with the hat trick, Wilson and Johansson. For Minnesota, it was Ellick, Matvechuk, and Tenorti. The Flames have won 5 of their last 7 games. Dave King at the helm. On the Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton. Oilers fans get into the holiday spirit, even though this is Halloween. First period, Oilers leading 1-0. Kevin Hatcher drops it to Peter Bondra, lets it go, and it's tied at 1. Second period, Caps leading 2-1. Vladimir Vutek puts it across to Brian Glynn. Lets it go from the face-off circle, beating Beaupre. Tying the game again. This time it's tied at 2. Later in the period, Scott Mellamy sends S. Tikkanen all alone. Tikkanen. Nice play. Oilers take a 3-2 lead. Third period, Josef Baranek in on the breakaway. Baranek hangs on and beats Beaupre. The question is, how little support did Beaupre get? Not much support at all. 4-2 the final score. Edmonton over Washington. Bandra and Konowalchuk, his first goal for the Capitals. For Edmonton, it was Simpson, Glynn, Tikkanen, and Baranek, also his first. The Oilers broke a 6-game losing streak against the Caps. And in Hartford, it was the Kings over the Whalers by a score of 7-1. Zarli Zlapski, the lone marker for the Whalers. For L.A., it was Curry the pair, Millen, Robitaille, Sandstrom, Matorley, and Robert Reichel. The Whalers have lost 3 in a row. And the Colisée in Quebec, Winnipeg, losers 3-2 to the Nordique. Chuck and Old Chuck goals for Winnipeg. For Quebec, it was Sundin Chuck with a pair and Ricci Chuck with his 8th of the season. All right, just a quick break, but we'll finish the NHL story for you when we come back. We'll take a look at the Rangers at the Forum Montreal. And we'll look at the top of the standings in the North as well. The Wings and the Leafs met on Friday. We'll look at round 2 in Toronto from Saturday night.
The way imports are priced these days, they're getting harder and harder to get into. Unless it's a 93 Hyundai Sonata. Now it's easy to get into luxury features with more room, more comfort, and more power. Or get into the 93 Elantra with room for 5 and a larger, more powerful 1.8-liter engine. Plus, all Hyundais are now covered by one of the best warranties in the business. The 93s from Hyundai.
They've got one. They've got one. Elegant, very fashionable.
Wiser locks add so much to your home. They tend to arouse curiosity.
Wiser locks are everywhere.
In the past 30 years,
More than half
the new homes in Canada have Wiser locks.
Great security. Hello. Tell him, Arthur.
More than half the new homes have Wiser locks.
Tell it to the judge, Arthur.
Look for Canadian-made Wiser locks.
Grand Fuhrer Rick Walmsley still hurt, so Felix Potvin got yet another start in net for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs and the Red Wings, back half of a home-and-home series. The Wings pounded the Leafs 7-1 in Detroit on Friday night. It was Potvin's first loss of the season compared to 3 wins and a tie. Potvin has been extremely dependable, and the fans are always dependable to come out in full Halloween garb. No score in the second period. Then Doug Gilmour finds Mike Krushenitsky in front, and he beats Tim Cheveldae, gives the Leafs a 1-0 lead. A few minutes later, the Wings do tie it up. Mark Howe, the shot, John Ogrodnik beats Felix Potvin, and that is the only time the Red Wings would beat Potvin on this night. Game tied at 1. Emotions run a little high. Dallas Drake hammers Mike Foligno against the boards. Foligno takes exception to it, dumps him, and then watch Primo coming out of nowhere. Foligno's going at it, trying to deal with things, and Primo, the cross-check for it. Primo out of the ball game, out of the hockey game, but play continues, and Todd Gill, Peter Zezel puts it into the open net. The Leafs are marching along. Glenn Anderson is there to cap off the game as he beats Cheveldae with about a minute left to go in the game. That made the score 3-1, Toronto over Detroit. They go 1-1 in this home-and-home series. But more importantly, from the Leafs' goaltending standpoint, Potvin is doing the job. In 6 starts, for the injured Walmsley and Grand Fuhrer, Potvin is now 4-1-1. All right, goal scorers in this game. For Detroit, it was John Ogrodnik, his first of the year. For Toronto, Krushenitsky, his 3rd, Zezel's 4th, and Gilmour's 8th of the year. The Leafs move back into a first-place tie with the Red Wings in the Norris Division. At the Boston Garden, the Grim Reaper in the stands, and he was also on the ice. Stu Grimson just pounds Darren Banks in this game. Banks has been taking a beating in the last couple of games. First period, Mike Hudson spins and shoots. Nice play beating Reggie Lemelin. It's 1-0. Second period, game tied at 1. Adam Oates to Steve Leach, and Leach converts. Fools Eddie Belfour, 2-1 Boston. Third period, game tied at 2. Mike Hudson will go to Dirk Graham after making an outstanding move. Graham chips it over Reggie Lemelin. Chicago wins in this one 3-2 the final score. Eddie Belfour had a very strong net. Offensively for the Blackhawks, it was Noonan with a pair, Dirk Graham is fifth. For Boston, Rosie Ruzicka and Steve Leach. The Bruins suffer their first home loss of the season. On now to a new head coach. Bob Berry, the former ex-assistant GM, is now debuting behind the bench. Watch this. Lindros will check from behind. Looked like he was playing bowling. The referee was not amused. The referee tossed Lindros, and then Lindros tossed just about everything else in his way. Now watch this right here. Lindros breaks his ankle, ends his NHL career. No, didn't happen. Fortunately, he's okay. Blues capitalized by scoring twice in the power play. Big rebound for Brett Hall. Knocks in his fifth of the year, 2-0 St. Louis. Move to the second period. Score tied at 3. Blues shorthanded. Nelson Emerson takes the great lead pass from Bob Batson and tucks it in. But the star was Vitaly Prokhorov. Nice passing play. Finishes with his third goal of the game. His first hat trick in the NHL. And St. Louis, much to the celebration of the fans on hand, hangs on to beat Philadelphia 6-4 the final score. Boivin, Ricci, Evans, and Pedersen with goals for Philadelphia. That's Recchi, of course. For St. Louis, it was Prokhorov with the hat trick. Hall, his fifth of the season. Jason Ruff and Nelson Emerson with singles. Flyers winless in their last 8 games. They are 0-6-2. On Long Island, it was the Devils over the Islanders by a score of 5-3. Richer with a pair. McKay, Seamack, and Troy Millette. For New York, it was Derek King with 2 and Benoit Hogue with his 6th of the year. Elsewhere, New York at Montreal. 3 periods and 2 entirely different games at the Forum. The first period and a half was all Montreal, but the Rangers dominated in the second 30 minutes. It was a type of game that neither coach will be very pleased with, but it was the type of game that the fans enjoy watching. Nielsen didn't like what he saw early on. Mike Keane down the right wing, drop pass for Stéphane Lebeau, puts it in by Van Beesbrook, 1-0 Montreal. A few minutes later, terrific pressure by the Habs. Lebeau just misses. The puck comes to him behind the net, so he hangs on, waits, looks for Kevin Haller, who's moving in from the point. The pass comes to Haller. He puts it by Van Beesbrook. Great effort by Lebeau. 2-0 for the Habs. John Van Beesbrook keeping the Rangers in the game. Watch this terrific save as he just robs Lebeau. No right in making that stop, unless, of course, you're a great goaltender like he is. Can't stop them all, though. 3-0 Habs. Mario Roberge with the backhand. It hits Jay Wells, goes in. 4-0 Montreal. Now cue the comeback. Third period, 4-2 Rangers. The rebound comes to Darren Turcotte. He is falling, but he puts it in anyway. And you wonder if the Canadian streak will keep going and going and going, just like that rabbit. Montreal led 4-0. They hung on to win it 4-3. Gardner with a pair, 9th and 10th of the year. Turcotte with his 3rd of the year. For Montreal, it was Lebeau, Haller, Bellows, and Mario Roberge, his 1st of the season. The Habs unbeaten in the last 7 games, 6-0-1 during that stretch. Festive night at the Ottawa Civic Center. Mel's Rockpile finishing off a home-and-home series of the Buffalo Sabres. Sabres start right where they left off on Friday night, scoring goals. Howard Chuck with the shot. Peter Smirkowitz can't corral the rebound. Wayne Presley is there to bang it in. Sabres quickly led 1-0. Less than a couple minutes later, Pat LaFontaine out in front. Takes the pass and fires it home. 2-0 Sabres. And Ottawa fans looking for the hook. Get it, the hook? Forget it. But the Senators come back. Jamie Baker, left all alone in front of the net, will tip the shot by Darren Pupa. Score now 2-1. Before the end of the first period, the Ottawa Senators tie it up. Jamie Baker, 2-on-1, finds Jody Hall, who taps it in. Things get a little rough in the second period in this game. Brad May and Mike Enrico Peluso, who was disguised as a hockey player in the night, call this one a draw. As a matter of fact, call this game a draw. 2-2 overtime final. Presley LaFontaine for Buffalo. For Ottawa was Baker and Jody Hall, the 2nd of the year. Senators still have not won since opening night. First time in over 20 years the defending Grey Cup champions have missed the playoffs the next year. First time in 10 years that a CFL team has gone an entire season without winning a single game on the road. Not something you want to brag about, but certainly something the Argos will have plenty of time to think about in the very, very long off-season. First quarter, Riders leading 7-0. Rocket Ishmael goes in from 4 yards out, ties the game at 7. Things are looking good. Second quarter, Les Brown will block Hank Olisic's punt. Rookie linebacker Joe Sardo recovers a loose ball. He goes 58 yards for the major to make it 14-7 for the Rough Riders, and things are looking bad for Toronto. Second half, Ottawa leading 17-12. Tom Burgess calls his own number. He goes in for the score, 24-12 for the Riders. Under 2 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter play. Darren Joseph from 5 yards out, makes his way in from outside. Ottawa defeats the Argos 31-12 and ends the season for the Toronto Argonauts. They have one game left, but it really doesn't matter now. The Rough Riders said they were going to whoop the Argos. They did that. They knocked the Argos out of the playoffs. The Riders now move into a three-way tie for first place in the East with Winnipeg and Hamilton. Winnipeg over the BC Lions by a score of 29-26 at BC Place. Another time out here on Sportsdesk. When we come back, we'll do some horsing around the Breeders' Cup. Several Canadian horses with a shot at the victory. The best bsky Classic trying to establish his own piece of turf.
While much has changed over our 75-year history, some things have not. We still build our cars to the highest standards of safety, performance, and quality. Standards that guarantee the unique sense of driving pleasure that only a BMW can deliver. The BMW 3 Series. 5 cars, each one unmistakably a BMW. One of them is for you. BMW, the ultimate driving experience.
They've got one. They've got one. Elegant, very fashionable.
Wiser locks add so much to your home. They tend to arouse curiosity.
Wiser locks are everywhere.
In the past 30 years,
More than half.
more than half the new homes in Canada have wiser locks.
Great security. Hello. Tell 'em, Arthur.
More than half the new homes have wiser locks.
Tell it to the judge, Arthur.
Look for Canadian-made Wiser locks.
Anyone who thinks that they can take a shortcut, it catches up with you eventually. It takes a lot of patience to get where you want to go. To me, being drug-free is not only a choice, but a commitment.
Integrity makes true champions.
It is the single biggest day in thoroughbred horse racing. All the best horses were at the Breeders' Cup, with the Horse of the Year honors still in doubt. Canadian-owned Sky Classic skipped the Rothmans with thoughts of taking the Breeders' Turf. The race was supposed to come down to a battle between Sky Classic, the odds-on favorite, and California horse Navarone, who was yet to lose on a grass track with Chris McCarron aboard. And it turned out to be an excellent race. With the call down the stretch, here's track announcer Tom Durkin.
Clear aim to him as they move toward the top of the stretch. Subotika's on the outside third. Naros is done, and Fraze moves into contention. Navarone turns for home in front with Sky Classic running by him. Sky Classic takes the lead, but Fraze is coming up the inside, and Quest for Fame is closing third. Sky Classic fully extended. Fraze on the inside, and Fraze nips Sky Classic in the last stride.
Outstanding finish. Got to take another look at it. Just watch this. Fraze just noses out Sky Classic at the finish line. Just a fantastic finish. And was Fraze a long shot? Paid $30 to win $640. Place $480 to show. Sky Classic paying $280, $240. Quest for Fame finishing third, paid $560. So with Sky Classic's loss to an underdog, the Horse of the Year honors are almost certainly out of the question for Classic. That set up a great showdown in the Breeders' Classic between AP Indy and Pleasant Tap, both bidding to be called the best thoroughbred in 1992. Here's Tom Durkin once again with the call.
AP Indy is finding his best stride, and he's moving powerfully in between horses as they move toward the top of the stretch in this 9th Breeders' Cup Classic defensive play. The Norable's still there. AP Indy's in an all-out drive, and Pleasant Tap is coming with giant strides on the inside. They're coming to the finish. It is AP Indy in front. Pleasant Tap, one last run at him. AP Indy wins the Breeders' Cup Classic by 3 conclusive lengths.
And AP Indy takes giant strides in an effort to prove that it is the thoroughbred horse of the year in 1992, paying $620, $340, $280. Pleasant Tap paying $320 and $280. A little disappointing, but some good performances turned in by the Canadian horses on the day. Teresa Hergert was in Florida for the Breeders' Cup and has this recap for us.
They call it the marathon. At 1.5 miles, the turf is the longest Breeders' Cup race. But Samson Farms Sky Classic was up and ready for the challenge. They had brought him down to Florida early to get used to the heat, and he was well rested. But in the end, it came down to the wire, and Sky Classic was denied a well-deserved trip to the winner's circle.
So he ran game and ran an honest race and set a track record, so, you know, the good horse beat him. So there's not much you can do about it today. I think we could, you know, we beat that horse easily last time, and this time he beat us ahead. So, you know, they're two very good horses.
Disappointment was etched on the faces of Jim Day and jockey Pat Day as they walked back to the paddock. Pat had to go and change for the next race, but he told Jim that he had had some trouble.
Sky Classic today, for whatever the reason, wasn't about to settle as kindly as he would be beneficial on this 1.5 mile slow turf race. So he was having to take a pretty good hold of him early to keep him, you know, somewhat off the pace. But you know, he was wrestling with him at the time, and you know, that uses up a little bit of energy. And then when you ask him to run at the end after you've been holding him for quite a while, they end up, you know, maybe just not being as strong as they could.
There were no celebrations for other Canadian horses at this year's Breeders' Cup. King Corey, owned by Aubrey Minchell of Toronto, finished 6th in the sprint. For the Wilkinson's Thunder Regent, the news was even worse. Not only had he finished second to last in the mile, he also ended up with a cut just above his left hoof.
I made a mistake. He doesn't have that kind of speed to go with good horses. Going a little further, I think he's all right. They squeezed him in tight into the first turn. When he kicked into the left lead, it looked like he wrapped himself pretty good in behind, and I'm going to tend to him right now. But I'm not going to count him out. I still got high hopes for him.
But this was to have been Sky Classic's day. A win in the turf would have boosted his chances of being voted North American Horse of the Year.
Well, it hurts. But that's the way it goes.
Sky Classic will race one more time, possibly in Japan, before Jim Day retires him. But this horse will be remembered for a very long time, not only for a tremendous career, but for a thrilling, right-to-the-wire finish at the 92 Breeders' Cup Turf. Teresa Hergert, TSN, Hallandale, Florida.
Thanks, Therese. Some exciting racing at Gulfstream Park in Florida. Unfortunately, the day of racing was marred by some tragedy. The accident happened in the Breeders' Sprint. Great finish, but #1 horse, Mr. Brooks, with 56-year-old legend Lester Piggott aboard, broke his right foreleg. Piggott goes down in the crash. He was taken to hospital and is in stable condition with a broken rib and broken clavicle. Mr. Brooks, unfortunately, had to be humanely destroyed. Since 1989, 4 horses have been fatally injured in the sprint. All right, time for a break, but as we go to the last break of the night, we'll give you the last piece of horse racing information you'll need on the night. For you horse racing fans, here are the results from the other 5 races at this year's Breeders' Cup.
This quality moment in sports is brought to you by Ford of Canada, where quality is more than a commitment. Quality is job one. It's working.
Friday night in Buffalo, Pat LaFontaine scores 2 goals and sets up 3 others as the Sabres drub the fledgling Senators 12-3. The high-scoring center now has 2 5-point games this season, and 12 of his 29 points have come against expansion teams.
At Ford, quality is job one. It's working.
Our main objective when we designed our new front-wheel drive minivan with standard anti-lock brakes was to make certain that it was the only car in its class. Period. Introducing the 1993 Villager. Quality is job one. It's working.
Did you see that?
What?
Now when you come to McDonald's, you'll discover two great tastes, like the great barbecue flavor of the McRib sandwich and the McChicken Club with bacon, lettuce, and tomato, just $2.49 each for a limited time.
Did you see that?
I saw that.
To see IAU football, and all the conference finalists have now been decided on the road to the Vanier Cup. Number 4 ranked Laurier Golden Hawks trying to get back to the Sky Dome in an effort to defend their national title. They face number 7 ranked Western Mustangs on Saturday afternoon in one of the day's OUAA semifinal matchups. Rich Newbro trying to get back to the Sky Dome, but doesn't like what he sees early on. Matt Dickey takes it in from a yard out. 14-0 Mustangs. Third quarter, 17-10 Western. Bill Kubas finds P.J. Martin in the end zone. I think you could say he was a little wide open. Game tied at 17, fourth quarter, 24-20 Laurier. John LeClaire pitches to Matt Dickey. He trips, but great second and third effort. 27-24 Western. The Hawks come back. 5:34 to go. Bill Kubas looks to the end zone and finds Pat O'Leary. Great concentration. Tips it and hangs on. 31-27 Laurier. Under a minute to go. Last shot for Western now. 3rd and 2. Got to score here or they go home empty. And Matt Dickey comes through again. Up and over the middle for the touchdown. That was the difference. Western over Laurier, 34-31. Laurier's done for the year. Western will go on to face the winner of this game. Time running out, fourth quarter, 10-7 Blues. Danny Walker ties the game between the Guelph Griffins and the University of Toronto Blues. Game tied at 10. Blues try a reverse. It goes to Brian Zomer. He finds some open field, heads downfield. 33 yards for the touchdown, 17-10 for the Blues. Game tied. Now we are in overtime. Kyle Walters heads to the right on the nice little leg in the backfield, and from there on it is just a sprint. It took 2 overtime periods, but the Guelph Griffins are on their way to the Yates Cup with a 31-17 victory over the University of Toronto Blues. Other scores to tell you about the Ontario-Quebec Conference. It was Bishops over Ottawa by a score of 21-13. Bishops goes on to face the Queens Golden Gales because Queens defeated McGill 24-21. So Queens will play Bishops in the Dunsmore Cup next weekend at Bishops. In the Atlantic Conference, Mount Allison earned a berth in the Atlantic Final with a 32-29 victory over Acadia. Acadia actually led this game 20-1 after 7 minutes of play, but Acadia is done, and Mount A will go on to face St. Mary's because St. Mary's finished the season with a perfect 8-0 record. They capped it off with a 56-17 victory over St. FX. St. Mary's will host Mount A next weekend in the AUAA final. And in a Western Conference game that really meant very little because both Manitoba and Saskatchewan are out, but it was the Bisons over the Huskies, 18-15. The Western Conference final had already been decided quite a while ago. UBC Thunderbirds will be at home to play the Calgary Dinosaurs next Saturday at UBC. On to some golf now, and this week's stop on the PGA Tour is the Tour Championship. It's the final official stop on the 1992 Tour, and they saved a good payday for the last event, over $2 million in prize money on the line at Pinehurst in North Carolina. Lee Jansen right in the thick of things. This is for birdie on 13. It is good. He goes to 4 under par. Paul Azinger on the par 4 12th hole. His second shot rolls right up to the green. He was in some thick rough, but you certainly couldn't tell it by the end result.
As I said, Steve, you can't.
What a terrific shot. He would birdie that, goes to 9 under par. John Hewson on 16. He's putting for birdie. He drains it. He sits at 5 under par. Dan Forsman on the par 5 16th hole looks to be in some trouble. No problem. Great recovery right here. He's got that left for birdie. He makes it, goes to 5 under par. David Frost in the bunker on 17. His second shot doesn't bite quite as nice as he would like to, but he still had that left for birdie, and he made it. He dropped to 4 under par. Azinger, a 3-stroke lead over John Hewson going to the final round of the Tour Championship. On now to our highlight of the night, and a little bit unusual on this night. Go back to some college football, but it wasn't the players we were looking at. Wolverines facing 4th and inches. They call in the Rabbits.
20, 15, 10, cuts back inside, 5 to the 1, touchdown!
A touchdown by the speedster, and you can really say he runs like a rabbit. That was funny to see. All right, the winner of the Turf Classic, Sky Classic, finishing in second behind Fraze, And the winner at the Breeders' Cup Classic was AP Indy. Looks like maybe Horse of the Year. I'm out of time. We'll see you later.